Hi, and welcome to Heaven. This is Julia Kibilda,
Raquel Alves.
and today we're drinking some meloncello, which has a very nice orange color, which you can't see, but it's very pretty.
Oh, I like the texture of it.
Yeah, it's like creamy. It's very nice. I really want to
Yeah.
make a drink with it.
Yeah, it's like a creamy alcoholic juice.
It tastes just like melon, so it's almost like you're eating fruit. It's actually healthy for you.
Yeah, we will say that it's a healthy option for this fine evening
For the vegans.
for the vegans.
Anyways, yeah, so today we are coming to you with another movie episode, and we're gonna talk about Poor Things, which I think has been a very hot topic this past few weeks, with so many people discussing it online and having very, very, very different opinions. And
Yeah.
yeah, so what did you think, Raquel?
So I think we will dive into it very soon, but I think overall I liked it. So my opinion will be mostly positive.
Yeah, me too. I don't really agree with the negative comments so much. I think we'll dive into it further later, but maybe it will be a good time to tell what the movie is actually about for those of you who don't know. So the movie is obviously based on a book of the same title as well, and it's kind of like this Frankenstein almost story. So it's about this girl called Bella Baxter who basically at the beginning of the movie we see her committing suicide, but then she's somehow alive later, and we find out that this kind of weird doctor who kind of looks like Frankenstein himself has basically taken Bella's body and extracted her dead baby's brain that was in her womb and put it in her head. So basically, who Bella is, she's a woman with a woman's body, but with a brain of a newborn child. And that's kind of what the whole movie is all about. It's about her discovering the world and her brain trying to catch up with her and kind of grasp the reality. It's a very interesting concept, I have to say.
It's not like a new concept, but I feel it worked very well overall for the film. And yeah, I think I really enjoyed the whole experience. I have to say that I got a bit of PTSD once I saw the trailer for the first time, which is like this is going to be a reference that no one will like know what I'm talking about. But because when she comes out saying like I'm Bella Baxter, I got like I started shaking. Why? Because I saw this old French film a long time ago by Marguerite Duras. I think it's from the 1970s, and it's called Baxter, Verre Baxter. And it got me PTSD because that movie is boring as fuck. It took so long, and you just hear her saying like every 5 minutes, Baxter, Verre Baxter, all the time. And I was like, I'm gonna go
Oh,
insane.
that's actually so creepy. Wow.
I
No.
know,
I
but
actually didn't see the trailer. I didn't even know what to expect when I went into the movie. I actually thought it was going to be something different. I didn't really know anything about the story. So I was quite positively surprised. It felt like very new to me just because I haven't known
yeah.
anything about it, even though it's not a new concept, as you said, at all. But I think it's quite interesting that it's this woman with a mind of a child. So
Yeah. So I think we will like divide this into first the good things, so say everything we liked about the movie, and then into the poor things, things that we feel like didn't work as much.
pun intended, by the way. As I said, I really liked the movie. I think I like that it shows quite well how she's trying to catch up with reality, and because she has this baby brain, she doesn't really understand the constraints for women in the
Mhm.
regular world, and that is kind of in terms of like plot wise, that was a very nice angle for me because I think it allows for a lot of exploration of that topic and of like female emancipation. And obviously there are a lot of people online saying that yeah, it's like a male director though, and she's very much represented through the male gaze and all of that, which is kind of true, but I think that people who want to take away something from the movie will still take it away from it. That's kind of my perspective with things like that always. And I think the movie inadvertently it does show a woman that's trying to find herself in a way. Whether she does it being overly sexual is another thing, but I think the underlying principle of it is really nice.
Yeah, I do think that there was a premise and it was delivered overall in the end. And I kind of like how, because I initially really wanted to see this film because it looked very quirky and very much my
Yeah,
thing.
same.
Um,
I was like, this looks weird. Let me see that.
yeah, exactly. And also, I really enjoyed The Favorite, which is another film by this director. In contrast with that one, this one is way more uplifting and is way more wholesome. Like the whole experience of watching it. I think it works as a great comedy. It
Yeah.
makes some very smart jokes, especially with what she's saying of her navigating and understanding like the differences of women and men in the world. And she's like, I don't get it. And you're like, we don't get it too, hun. Like
It
the
actually
world this sucks.
Yeah, you're very right. It actually has like a very strong comedic aspect to it. Even though a lot of it is very like gory, like the film itself, and it really shows like, the harsh realities of life, especially that it's set a while back in time. So even though it's kind of like fictionalized reality, but it's not like current times. And so she does resort to like prostitution, and you see like issues like homelessness and abuse and all of those things, and like women having no voice whatsoever just because of like the time period that it's set in.
It makes a lot of sense because I guess the whole world building was, I think, one of the key points to make this film succeed so much. Like, from the
Yeah.
not so news type of story and make it actually quite unique. So the whole like ambience came very nice together with like set design, production, costumes, the visual effects, soundtrack, like everything
Yeah.
worked to make this very like fable type of story, which brings a bit of gothic, a bit of grotesque, and it's something that the story really needed because, switching the corpse brains ain't like it's very like messed up, right? So I think all
Yeah.
of the settings really made the story justice and into make it like something quite unique for us to watch.
That's true. And now that you say that, it actually makes me think like it also contrasts a lot like the futuristic with the old
Yeah.
in terms of the set design and costume design, because it's obviously you can tell that it's like a period film in a sense. But
Mhm.
for example, when you have the scenes like in Lisbon, or like is it Porto? I don't remember. But
Lisbon is Lisbon.
yeah, and you have the trams, but they're like flying trams. So
Yeah, I think it's
immediately
really
you see
cool.
that it's this like futuristic aspect to it, which first of all makes you like detach from the historical context of it a little bit and think about it as more like fiction, but it also kind of ties nicely this idea of an adult person and something new and this whole weird aspect to it, and it makes it almost normal because you're like, okay, yeah, he transplanted a baby's brain into this woman, and that's perfectly okay, and we do that.
Yeah, it makes things slightly more believable, like as they can
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
The whole like, disbelief becomes like way easier with the whole setup of the story.
exactly. It's much more, it's very theatrical. Like the whole film is extremely theatrical, especially her performance, Emma Stone's performance. And she does a really great job at that. And with like her physical mannerisms and weird twitches and movements when she's trying to learn how to walk and behave in this massive body of a woman. I don't know, I found it quite extraordinary. I don't recall seeing any similar acting to that. So I think that was also like a very strong point of the movie.
I don't know if she's a muse of his, but she was in like other of his films. But I think he was very well casted because I think we like actresses do need more of these type of roles that it's not like, pretty roles.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
there
like
are
bombshell beauty.
yeah. And Emma Stone is a beautiful woman. And I think she was really able to show like her capacities as an actress in this
Yeah.
film precisely. And even her like comedic sense still came through. And I think that was really well done. I feel that's definitely a good chemistry between her and the director because she also produced the film. Some people are really pushing this agenda, like men are trash, blah, blah, and not far from the truth. But I really think in this case,
Yeah, she
by
was
looking
also.
at, she was also pretty much in the creative direction of the film. She really she had like the power to say no and yes to things and to construct her own character.
Yeah,
So pretty
exactly.
much aligned with the director. It was like really a work between them two, mostly because she's like the main force of the film to come up with this result. And I think we should never forget that her role was really not just to be an actress. She really had the creative power to do what she wanted with her character and within the film. And you can really see that, I feel.
I totally agree. And I've seen a lot of people say that, oh, Bella Baxter is another male fantasy of this childlike woman who's just trying to find her voice in reality. And like, yes, that's exactly what she is. That's the whole point of the
Mhm.
movie, in a sense, because it is meant to be visible that she's this man fantasy, but then in the end, the men can't keep up with her. None of the men that are in the film can keep up with her development. And in a sense, it's a very great metaphor of like women and women progressing and men just falling behind because she has this child brain of a child that's like developing at an unnatural speed for like an adult human being. It kind of really well shows how women have progressed and men have just fallen behind for me. Like that's kind of what I took away from it.
I really do share that sentiment that I feel because now not actually in the film but in our real world that women have done so much work to deconstruct our own minds from those preconceived ideas of womanhood and what we are made for, what we should be, what we should do. And I think men are like falling a bit behind because we are finding ourselves and redefining who we are as women, and men never really updated in that sense. Like, we are like the latest version of Mac iOS and they're still like in iPhone 10. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
the opposite. They're trying to cling to like the traditional roles in a sense and to like their manhood rather
find
than
their
like
own sense.
finally
Yeah.
like progressing and just figuring out that you can be whoever you want. You don't have to like prove you're a man to other people. Like instead of going in that direction, they kind of are going backwards. The more we progress, the more they try to cling to that traditional. And in a sense, the movie also shows that.
Yeah, definitely, because all the men, maybe except for the one friend she makes on the ship,
Yeah.
all of the men kind of push her to, oh, like don't say these things. Oh, you have to do that. Oh, you're gonna marry this
Yeah, that's
man.
like indecent. You shouldn't do that, or like you shouldn't read those
Yeah.
books. You shouldn't, you shouldn't be a prostitute. That's not acceptable. Or
Exactly. So all the men keep saying her what to do in a way, and she's been like, why would I? You know what I mean? And that's like the thought that only kind of a child in metaphor would do is like question the things that we as adults are so used to live by. In that regards, I really enjoyed Mark Buffalo's performance and like his character as this womanizer, very misogynistic as well, controller, and then completely going insane when she just refuses him to the point that he goes to like a
yeah.
fucking hospice. I was like, this is
But then also like pretending he's
smart
taking
writing.
interest when she's like emancipating herself and he's no longer into that at all. But actually he is because he wants to possess her, but he can't anymore. So good.
Yeah, it's really good. Like his character, I think, was the best, like smartly written. Like it is very funny, and we do find all his like toxic masculinity so well pointed out. And it's not just for laughs, it's like a real critique, but you laugh about it, and it becomes in a very fun character to see. I don't get, for example, super annoyed because I know the film is putting him in the wrong by the perspective we're seeing it. So I don't get
Yeah.
upset. I'm just like, haha, this is very funny.
Yeah, exactly. And he's kind of like the perfect exaggeration that kind of accompanies Bella as well, because even though he's similarly normal, his character
Mhm.
is also like extremely exaggerated to like another side in a sense, and it just works very well. They really complement each other. And the fact that he's supposedly, supporting Bella's emancipation and he's the one who like helps her get away from her house and escape her like maker and
It's just for his own gain, technically.
exactly. Yeah, I really like the movie. There's so many things about it that I do like. I also really liked the ending, but I don't know if that's something you want to talk about already.
Well, we forgot to say, but this is going to be all with spoilers, so we
I mean,
can
I
like.
think if someone reached to this point, they would know by now.
I mean, now you know.
But
Sorry for the.
always important to put a disclaimer, guys. We'll put it in the description of the episode. It's fine.
Yeah, we can talk about the ending actually. I also have notes on that, so.
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to say that I really liked the part when, basically when it turns out who she actually was in her past life before she committed suicide, and her husband comes to take her back, in a sense, her original husband tries to take her back from the altar from the other guy. And I think it's really interesting that she says yes, and she kind of wants to experience it for herself. She's just like, yeah, okay, you are my husband. Let me see what was
Mhm.
my life before. Let me just try it out for myself. And I think it kind of nicely, and even though he turns out to be like a fucking psychopath and just wants to like possess her and is extremely abusive and threatens to
Yeah.
kill her if she like disobeys him, he's kind of this super aggressive, extreme representation of a husband who treats his wife like a toy. And it's like immediately visible why she committed suicide.
Yeah.
But it kind of also nicely represents this idea that for her, it's all about like having the choice, that she
Yeah.
makes that choice and she's like, yeah, I want to put myself in this situation and see
Because
what
I'm
happens just because I want to and just because I want to try. And none of you can do anything to stop me. And then in the end, she obviously regrets it in the sense that like she's like, oh yeah, I can now clearly see why I killed myself.
Mhm.
And she escapes from that situation and goes back to her other life. But it's nice to see that she did have the choice, and it represents that idea of like a choice for a woman and like her autonomy over herself very, very well.
Yes, I also really appreciate the ending, especially for like all these things. For example, we went to see all this like adventure with her. She went out and about. She saw, the good things about the world, like super bad things of the world. She experienced being like very wealthy and then going down as being a prostitute, but also all a bit by choice. But she witnessed the bad things of the world, but she actually never really felt it in her own skin.
Yeah,
And when she is kind of trapped by her previous husband, is when she actually feels the cruelness of the world personified in this husband to her core for the first time. I
yeah,
think it's the first time that she actually does feel threatened and be like, whoa. And I also like the fact that besides all of these adventures, we're having the climax point of her life being taken away from her at home.
no,
So
that's true.
so not only like she could have been easily married off to the very first guy she saw, which there is no love whatsoever, it's more just friendship that they share,
Yeah, like convenience in a sense.
which in my view of the things at the very, very end, they're not married. Not only she could have just been married off at the end, it turned out even worse to being trapped once again to this cruel man. And I
Yeah,
think there's something quite powerful on this, that when we tell this woman's story, that actually what they say to her, that like all the biggest challenges and terrors are outside by her quote unquote father, scientists, they're actually in your own household,
yeah,
and when you're controlled by someone else. So it's bringing almost the political back home, and
yeah,
this like domestic scene where I think most women would actually feel way more represented, that the terrors that they live in is within their household. Even like with her decision to go with that husband, with that strange man to her, I think it is because she was very, once she learned about, the whole switching brains situation and that she was someone else before, I think she was very interested to see what made me or this woman
yeah,
kill herself. Because
yeah.
to her, life is amazing. To her, life is exciting. She does all of these new things. She learns about
That's
so many new stuff. And I think to her as Bella, she doesn't understand how could someone want to end her life.
yeah.
And I
How
think
could
she,
someone have it so bad to like just take it away?
yeah. And I think even the doctor said that as well when he was telling the story to his assistants about when he found out the corpse and stuff. And there's this, I mean, this is how I interpret it, but I really like this idea that the film is trying to give a second chance to life to this woman.
Yeah,
So the previous Victoria, who killed herself because she hated her life, she hated the fact that she was going to have a child because she was forced to have a child. She hated it everything that she ended up her life. And to me, like how I interpret is that Bella Baxter is the second chance to life that this woman got, a life where she could make the choice of who she wanted to be, where she wanted to be, how she wanted to be. And for me, that's quite powerful. Besides, obviously, all the other messages about the world. I think overall, what the doctor thought, even though he was also kind of a messed up character who just wanted to experiment, I think was like giving this woman a second chance to
yeah.
life. Pinoy. And I think that's very beautiful because she kind of make amends with the previous husband by turning him into a
A goat.
coat, and kind of fixed the past and lived on to a better new future. I think that's why I feel like the ending was so wholesome at the very end when she's just like in her house, she owns everything. She's
Yeah, she's
like,
with like her lover from Paris, from the brothel.
exactly,
Oh,
they're all
iconic,
having fun.
iconic plot line. So great.
I know. So that was all to me like very beautiful to watch. And it makes you like a very uplifting from like a very eerie, kind of gruesome
Yeah.
at times. It's a very uplifting and fun watch.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it was very funny because I went to the cinema, and behind me were those like three guys, and they were around like my age, and like,
Really.
yeah, and I just heard them like behind me being like, "Oh, like what's going on?" And then they like when we were leaving the cinema, they were just like, "Oh, this was something," and I was like, "Oh, you'll never understand."
Oh my God. I went to the cinema as well, and I feel like all the room was quite full, which is quite surprising for a very weird film, especially because here in Portugal people are still quite conservative to those types of things. But I feel like the reason why everyone was on it is because we all knew it's going to be a scene in Lisbon, and we would have a fado singer singing it, and we are all for the minimum representation we can get in a Hollywood film. Like
I
we are
love
on it.
that.
So we're all there waiting. So when the Lisbon scene came out, people were like, "Woo!"
I actually thought
And just
about that when I
singing.
was watching it. I thought of you, and I was like, "Oh my God, you would be so proud." Representation.
And then when the fellow singer like sang, it was like the whole moment of her watching her singing, her watching her singing, and then like at the end, one person clapped, like super happy that we saw.
That's so funny.
Uh,
Love
yes.
it.
Oh, another thing that happened in the cinema was like still when Bella is at home with the doctor and everything is black and white.
Yeah,
I feel like that's like the parts that's the weirdest. I feel like when things become full color because she starts going
I
in
know.
adventure,
Yeah,
it becomes like more exciting. The first part is a bit unsettling, I would say.
yeah, that's true.
As there was a man who, like a older man, like I don't know, in his 60s or 50s, I don't know. He like passed in front of us to like leave, and we just hear him being saying like, "Oh, fuck this," blah blah blah. And he just went away of the cinema.
Oh my God.
I was watching with my parents, and me and my mom were like, "Ooh,"
He did
to
not
each
give
other.
it justice. He was like, I am out of here.
Yeah, and my mom, like, I think afterwards said something of like, "I guess that man could not handle seeing a woman pissing herself."
I love that. Or masturbating with a cucumber.
Yeah, and an orange and everything. I mean, call by your name who? Bella Baxter is on
Bella Baxter, honestly. Forget the peaches.
the Forget the peaches, just cucumbers from now on.
On that note,
Do you want to pass into the poor things?
yes, let's.
I actually only have two things
Okay.
that I would kind of speak of. So I think this is like where everyone who does not like the film kind of comes across full front about all the sex scenes that
Yeah.
have been, and the film does have a lot of sex, which I think there's like a broader discourse that people are becoming slightly more prude and how like they have been complaining more and more about like sex scenes. So to me, I think the only problem I see with this film when it comes to those sex scenes is that although I think Bella Baxter is much better than other characters that fall into this trope, I think, yes, she still falls a little bit to the trope of the born sex yesterday, which is pretty much a male fantasy of grown woman with like an infantile brain or someone who doesn't know anything about the world, and then the man is going to show her, and that's like
Yeah, but she knows how to fuck, That's like her instinct.
that's how he
No, but it's true because like she doesn't know anything, and then like the second first thing she does is like masturbate, and like she's great
yeah.
at that.
Yeah, that would be like my complaint. Like I have
Yeah,
no problem with sex scenes, and I have no problem with sex scenes in this movie. And sex is important in any woman's self-discovery, I guess. But I think, yeah, my problem is that it still falls a bit into that trope of being, in this case, quite literally, brown woman with a child brain. And I think the worst is not that, it's more like how in the very beginnings of the film it escalates very quickly on how interested Bella is in sex in such a early stages of her brain,
Yeah.
because she's pretty much still an infant, and I'm not seeing it's just not realistic how I'm not seeing a child being so interested in masturbating or even just exploring her own body so soon. Like if it was maybe way half through the film,
Yeah, like
I
teenage kind of.
teenage, like her brain is reaching like the teenage phase, for example, it
Yeah,
would
but
make it.
she's like a baby and she's super like sex oriented.
Yeah, I think the initial parts, I did find it a bit unsettling, like for example, when I actually forgot his name, but like the guy comes and, touches her genitals and, her response is like, oh, I want more. Like this type of
Uh,
reaction from
and it's like assault, basically.
it is assault, and I think it's painted in that way, but her immediate interest on it to me is the response that I don't understand, and it does feel a bit too much to just fill up on this fantasy that like
True.
this woman is like sexy and she wants more. That's like one of the things that I don't really liked. And then the question that I think these critics put, which I think they're valid, is like, can we really call it a woman's self-discovery if she's been mentally underage for most of the film?
That's true. Yeah, because she's kind of a child.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am on the side of the people that like the movie, and there's like a way more things that I liked about it than the not, but I think it's still a relevant question to put up more for like future films to be more aware of these kind of issues, because I don't think she is full on the trope of born sex yesterday. But yeah, so I think that's like the only thing, like one of the two things that I didn't really
Yeah.
uh, like it as much, and I feel like it could have been improved to actually make like a 5-star film. And the other one is also a minor detail, but I think it's actually quite important, is that which I think in a way was made on purpose, but overall I think it could have been better, which is the most people that she encounters and that teach her about the world as she discovers it are all men, and
Yeah.
there was not as many women in it. Which for me, there's like two big misses. Where one is the character of Martha, which is like the older woman.
Yeah, that's true. She's not really like elevated. She gets kind of overtaken by the other guy who's her companion, and he
Exactly.
becomes that like mentor, whereas like it could have easily been her role.
Exactly. And then you have the black girl, which I also forgot her name, so sorry, from the bordel. So I
Yeah.
think the older woman, I don't understand why they didn't develop her more, because especially it's in a time that Bella is kind of understanding more the differences between men and women within society. So it would be natural of her to, come to Martha and be like, teach me more, I want to learn more. It would make more sense. And it even reminded me of the most touching moments, for example, in Barbie, which is like a complete opposite vibes to this film. But one of the most touching moments is Barbie with older women around her,
That's
like the woman from the bus where she looks at her, she's crying, and it just says, "You are beautiful." And she
and
has
she
never
said,
met
I
an older
know.
woman. And she goes, "I know." And they
Yeah.
laugh. That's beautiful. Or when she encounters her creator, who's also an older woman, twice. And all of these moments are pivotal moments on Barbie's growth. And I think that's kind of where we were missing for
Yeah.
Bella. I'm not saying that we cannot learn things from men. Of course we can. But I think she was missing those female role models to help her like navigate the world. And to me, we need to see someone, me as a woman, we need to see someone like us that is older and wiser. We need to see
Yeah.
an extended and diverse view of what a woman is, a view that isn't restricted to just youth or sex appeal. We need those images and that representation of all the possibilities we are capable of being and exist in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially if you want to push that kind of idea that she's learning for herself, because then that poses the question, is she actually like self-exploring, or is she just absorbing the ideas that the men are imposing on her in a way? And
Exactly.
that could have easily been elevated with her going more forward with the other female characters, as you said. Or for example, I didn't really like the character of the owner of the brothel.
Yeah, it was a bit of
Thought
a
that was like a quite mismatched character that could have been pushed in a different way as well, of that mentor kind of way. But
Mhm.
instead, it went into this like very grotesque, weird person that kind of tried to be a lot of things and ended up being none in the end. Because on
Yeah.
one hand, she was like teaching her, like, this is what you have to do with your life. If you want to like earn your living, this is how you can take control. But on the other hand, she was manipulative and abusive to Bella as well. So it didn't really make much sense to me in the end.
Yeah, I think her, like out of all the characters, she might have been the most stereotyped character as like, the
Yeah,
older brother, which who is also was also a prostitute before, and then she explores other girls and just keeps on in the business. I think she was like the most stereotyped character out of the bunch, to be honest. And even with the black girl, I also thought we could have a slightly more developed storyline, developing more of their relationship because there was clear affection from the start. And then we see when they actually engage in like sexual encounters, we've only had one scene. And it's like, I'm not against sex scenes, but if we have no problem in exploring the many
yeah,
sides
the
of
male. Yeah.
with the many men she encounters, why will we only have one scene of Bella exploring sex with another woman?
That's
Which, no rude to men, but Bella having sex with a woman for the first time would have been so much more enlightening than the other way around. Having sex for the first time with a woman would have made Bella like question all her sex with men.
honestly.
It would, and you cannot tell me that you wouldn't. And we did not get
Yeah,
that lesbian
like it's
story that we
tried a
deserved.
little bit, but then it only like touched upon it like very mildly, and it was just another like intercourse in a sense. Whereas
Yeah,
like it was just like more tender because it was with a woman, which it doesn't have to be. Like,
I know. So I
oh
think
yeah, that was like very stereotypical to be honest. That's true.
so that was like my other miss. I actually would love to have seen her develop her relationship with her and discovering her sexuality with her. Like for me, that's a much more like self-discovery by like only having been having sex with men and then find out that there's actually other options. And if she's so into sex, she will be way more into it as well.
That's true.
So I think, yeah, those are my two critiques. Like, we don't have enough female characters, which again kind of falls into this. We have an empowering story of a woman, but she's just like alone in the world. And that's just not true. Like, we are not alone in the world. We empower each other all the time. When I look back at my own life, I have so many women that I took as role model, women that I met in real life, women that I haven't, that I just like either read their works or watched
Yeah.
their works. They're all people in history and in current times that are women that really inspired me and be who I am. It makes total sense that I would look up to women to define my own womanhood. So I think that's like the two big misses for me in this film.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't really have much more to say on that, to be honest. I also didn't love the fish eye scenes.
Really?
I get what they were trying to do, and I get that it adds to like the quirkiness of the movie and all of that. But I feel like sometimes there comes a point when there's too much of like
Mm.
different elements because the movie is already, especially at the beginning, like it jumps between black and white and color. Like there's the transition is not like even at the start, so it's not like it's black and white and then it cuts to color. So there is this point where they like intersect, and then you get the fisheye, but then at some point it also disappears. So it's mostly when they're at home, which
Hmm.
makes sense because it's like the trap kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
illusion. And then you have like all the like over exaggerated exteriors and the costumes, which I love the costumes. I forgot to say in our like good parts, but I love the costumes and they were amazing. And we need more costume design like that because it was just wonderful. And as a fashion girly, I was obsessed with all of them.
About like the costumes and stuff, I still don't know, but like one of the things that strikes Bella from apart, for example, is the fact that her hair is always down.
Yeah, that's true.
And we can actually see because I think he says in the beginning that like, oh, her hair is growing like 5 centimeters a day or whatever, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
growing.
yeah, like a child.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the reasons why we see her hair down all the time is not only to like be able to see the hair growing, which you can actually tell, but also for her to be different from everybody around because like all women have like their hair up, like super poised and
Yeah,
stuff. But I think there's like one scene. There's only one scene that her hair is tight, I think.
Oh,
And I don't, and I'm trying to understand why. Like I'm trying to like
well,
understand why is that.
which scene is it?
So besides one time in the brothel, which is I think is mostly just for like decoration of her like looking appealing or whatever,
Yeah.
there's this one scene which is when she's still in Paris, and she has a braid and she's dressed in all black, and it's a scene that she gets the news that the doctor is dying and she goes back to London, and when she meets him, she has still the braid, but it's the only time
I
besides the
know.
brothel
I mean, I
that
have a theory.
okay, go, because I still haven't understood why, and I think there's a
I
meaning.
think her hair is untied because when she's a child, because if you think about kids, they're usually like running around with their hair out. And then like when a woman becomes like more modest and more serious, she like puts her hair up, especially like in older
Yeah,
times, like back in time. That's what would happen. Little girls would wear like their hair down or very loose braids and stuff, and then they would make those updos to appear more serious and elevated and elegant. And I think the when she comes back home, it's like her fully becoming an adult because she realizes because for her like the god is like the father, right? So it's her ending her adventure and kind of taking that adult responsibility of coming back home to visit her family. That's what
yeah,
it was like
maybe.
for me. I don't know
Yeah,
if the hair was done like that on purpose, but that's how I would interpret it if we are to like interpret it, which I think makes sense because
I think it
I
is
don't
because
think it would be an accident that they would like let her have her hair done for the whole movie and then just change it. Like,
that one scene. Yeah, exactly. That's why I
well, that's how I would interpret it. And for me, it makes perfect sense because that's like the moment where she's like, okay, I've had my adventures, but now like this is the time to come home because he's sick and I need to see him before that, despite
yeah.
like how complicated their relationship was.
Yeah, I think it's also maybe the moment where for her things actually become serious because everything was just all exciting and new and stuff. And then there was this like reality check of my father, because he is a father to her,
Yeah.
is dying.
Yeah.
And that's very real. And I have to go back home. And with the fun games, now it's time to actually go back home. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, any final considerations, conclusions?
I like to not listen to the haters. I mean, do listen to the haters because they make some good points, but I think overall, I think the last thing I want to say is that I feel like these days people are very sensitive. And I mean
Yes,
it like sometimes like it's good to be sensitive, but I think sometimes it's taken too far, especially online where things can get blown out of proportion very quickly. And I think people discarding the whole movie only based on the fact that it was directed by a guy, it's acting very contradictory to the purpose because you're also cutting out the woman who was integral to the creation of the movie by doing that. And I think
exactly.
people should really take a step back and take that into consideration too. And there are two sides to that story. And it's also not a movie made by a man can still give you good things to take away from it. It can still provoke positive discussion about the themes that the movie is touching on. Obviously, as we said, it's not perfect. It also has its issues, and that's very true. You have to acknowledge that. But you shouldn't write it off because for me, when I finished the movie, I was very happy. It made me really
Yeah.
uplifted. And I was like, it's so nice that someone made a movie so bizarre, but with such a real theme in it. And I remember leaving the cinema and like really reflecting on it and being really happy that I've seen it. It made me very happy. And then I started reading the like reviews online and the comments, and it really surprised me to be honest, and it made me quite upset because I don't know, it kind of also discarded what I took away from the movie because I started thinking like, oh, maybe I should be looking into it more. Maybe what if like my perception of my own liberty is wrong in a sense? What if like I am backwards? What if I'm not like
Yeah.
feminist enough in myself that it actually made me feel good? Maybe it shouldn't have, but I don't think that's the point. And like, as long as you can take good things out of something, even though it doesn't convey them perfectly, like you shouldn't just write it off. Stop the cancel culture. Like,
Yeah, this ain't a blonde. Like, if you want to see something extremely terrible sexually, go see
yeah,
Blonde
be blunt.
because
That's bad.
you
Exactly.
I honestly like talking about the film yet again. You can totally see the juxtaposition between that and this one. Nothing alike, nothing alike. I would rather have a man who's doing a good story with main female character and doing her justice and give her the ending that she deserved with some flaws on the way that, can just be improved
Yeah.
instead of another blonde. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather have this because and it's not even a rather in the sense of like the least bad. No, this is a good film, and we shouldn't discard because of like some flaws. We don't discard other films for their like minor flaws.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't discard
exactly.
this one either.
We can't just cancel men completely. Like we need to coexist, and that super radical standpoint of like just saying, oh no, he's a male director, like he couldn't have done like a good film. Normally I do agree with that. And obviously people with experience are the best to tell the story. That's always the case. But that, in my opinion, was a very good movie and it wasn't a bad work altogether. And just to discard it based on those few things would be very, very wrong.
Definitely.
It should always be like an open discourse and not just outright critique because I mean sometimes it has to when a movie is so bad it's obviously
But this is not
like
the case at all.
outwardly like misogynistic, but I totally don't see that with that movie, and I just wish people were like more open to consider different things.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is I don't think this film is feminist or quote unquote super empowering, but I also don't think it falls immediately because of that into being exploitive either. It's really more a film that has a lot to say about the world and how we live in the world. It's about philosophy and the bullshit that we are led to believe. It's about ethics and morals that don't really make sense in practical terms. It's about the quote unquote progress that we think we are when in fact we are not. And it's about trauma and then self discovery. I don't think it's specifically about womanhood. I don't think it has to be. And I actually like the fact that we stop seeing women so much through this genderless and just make us be just a universal experience as we did all
That's
the
like
time
a
with
human.
men. And of course, it is important to acknowledge the gender differences to not erase those experiences, but I don't think this film did that. I think it was very fair to its character, even with all those flaws. It was fair to the character, and as you said, you leave the film feeling good and uplifted, and that's how a movie should be.
Yeah, exactly.
It should make you think, it should make you maybe laugh, it should make you be emotional or almost cry, maybe make you maybe frightened. It should provoke your emotions. And in the end, feeling like, ah, I enjoyed it. It was good. And I think this movie was that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And with that, you should go watch it. Let us know what you think because it was great.
Watching with your parents might be an interesting experience because I watched with mine and they both had to sit down a bit before answering my thoughts of what did you think, guys?
Yeah, like Saltburn who? Like, I'm sorry. This was much more sexual and wild.
Like, honestly, Saltburn, who like Bella Baxter would ride like the Oliver from Saltburn. Like Oliver, you ain't shit on Bella Baxter, I swear.
Honestly, like Jacob Elordi walked so that Emma Stone could run.
Could run, literally. But yeah, let us know what you thought. If you have a lot of hate towards this film, we don't need to know. But if you loved it, do leave your comments in.
Yes. All right. Have a good day and see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.